You're most likely familiar with article directories as a link building tool. They're really fantastic for publishing your content, and in exchange you get a link back to your site, and oftentimes you can get that link back with the anchor text of your choosing. But there are thousands of other webmasters just like you who are also out there publishing to various article directories and who would really be thrilled to have you republish their content, including their link, on your own site. You're probably also aware of the fact that sometimes the content that people publish on sites like that isn't exactly the highest quality. So when you're using article directories to find borrowed content, it's really imperative that you qualify it before you publish it on your site. Put borrowed content like this through the very same test that you put your own content through. Give it the mom test. Would you really honestly be proud to show this off to your mom or to your friends? Would they think that it's a quality, informative piece? Would they learn something from having read this article or post? And that kind of thing, that vetting process is almost more important for borrowed content that you choose because it has been published elsewhere. You really need to ensure that the stuff that you do allow on your blog is held to the same standards as the stuff that you produce and write yourself, so that both your readers and Google, as they visit your site and they see this stuff on your site, you want them to continue to see your site as a place where only the highest quality, most useful, most informative content in your niche can be found. So in this video, we're going to browse a few of the more popular article directories to find some great, fantastic, and high quality borrowed content that we can use on our own sites. So this is Ezinearticles, and it is probably the most well-known article directory. So we'll go ahead and start here to source some really great borrowed content for our fictional tomato growing site. So I've entered in tomato growing into the search box, and we'll go ahead and click search and see what we come up with. Now, I look at the titles just to give me an idea, obviously, of what the article is about, but also to see if there are any interesting keyword-rich titles that would work for my site. And in this case, we're talking about the fictional tomato growing site. So I'm going to look for something that says tomato growing in it. If I was working on this site, of course, I'd have a list of other keywords that I knew that people had searched for. And it might be, you know, tomato fertilizer or indoor tomato growing and that kind of thing. But in this case, since this is fictional, my biggest keyword that I'm going to go after and look for is tomato growing, since that's something that I know people search for. So here's an article, tomato growing, proper nutrition for huge tomato plants. And let's take a look at the article because, again, the content that you find on these sites may or may not be of really great quality. And a lot of these sites have worked very hard since the Google Panda update to ensure that the content that they have is really great content and that isn't rewritten or spun, or that was written by somebody who has a good grasp of the English language. But you still need to do your own quality check and your own vetting to make sure that that is the case for the particular article that you're looking at. So looking at this lady's article, she has some really good information about what the fertilizer package actually tells you. And that's some information that, were I to have a fictional or an actual tomato growing website, I probably wouldn't know. And so this would be a great piece of borrowed content for me. She says ratios of 5-10-10 or 8-16-16 are a good start. And that's something that I wouldn't know because I'm not immersed in this niche every day. So it's something that I could publish and know that I was getting out to my users some content that they may not have been able to get from me personally otherwise. She talks about using organic soils, wood chips, leaves, and compost, and nitrogen. So I think that this is a pretty good article. And so what would I do at that point? I'm going to copy the article content, copy, and then I'm going to go over to my WordPress blog and create a post out of this. So here's my WordPress blog, and I would paste this information in there. But usually we need to do a word paste and insert. There it is, and you'll see when you do it that way that the hyperlinks that you are required to include are actually included for you. So there it is. Then we want to get the title. So let's grab the title, copy, and then I'll paste that in here. Paste. And don't forget, of course, that we do need to add our own introduction or our own thoughts in this particular, or in every piece of borrowed content that we post. So I would go ahead and do that as well, but we've got a separate video on that issue. So you can watch that for some techniques and tips on creating an introduction for a post. But let's save the draft and then preview it and take a peek at what it would look like. Now you see all of her bolding comes through and her links come through with the exact anchor text that she wanted. So this looks great. And once I added my introduction or my conclusion or my other personal additions as the market leader on my own site, this particular post would be absolutely ready to go. So let's take a look at another site that we can do this kind of thing with. This is Articles Alley, and Articles Alley is another site similar to Ezinearticles where people can contribute their content. They do want that content to be published elsewhere, assuming of course that you include a link back to them. So let's search for tomato growing here. And most of these sites are so vast that you'll really be able to find content on just about any topic. If I search for tomato growing and I don't find anything, then searching for just tomatoes may come up with something for me. So tomato sauce, growing organic vegetables, that's a little bit too broad for what I would be looking for here. Perennials, vitamins, grandma's garden, this is all a little bit too broad. And on and on and on, too broad. So let's just search for tomatoes and see what we get. A good friend of man, okay. So this article begins with, as long as a man to wish they were in the toilet when a powerful jet of water, not dripping, just like a faucet, will not shut tight. Awkward small trickle. Flirt to your lower body. And the rest of my life to the happiness of his wife. The new man of you. Why do not eat tomatoes? Alright, so this is a really good example of some of the low quality content that can be found at these kinds of sites. And this is why we are checking our articles before we decide to repost them. This one is out because that first paragraph makes absolutely no sense, at least to me. So let's carry on and continue to look for something that would actually work. That looks like a piece of spun content. So they were subbing in synonyms for words, and as they do that, it tends to not make any sense in the end. Should you purchase a tomato juicer? It's close, but it isn't about growing. Fruits and vegetables to help prevent prostate cancer. Meatball recipes, tomato sauce. Grandma's garden. Carrying on, cast iron enamel cookware. That's not quite about tomatoes. Low carb, cabbage soup diet. Foods that fight cancer, superfoods that fight stress. How to sober people up. Tomato juice, apparently, helps with the absorption and decomposition of alcohol. Who knew? Organic vegetables. So we're not finding anything specific to tomato growing. So instead what I might do if I needed a piece of content and I wanted to publish it to my site is I'd go back to tomato because that's where we saw a few. Tomato growing, and there was some articles about prostate cancer and tomatoes, which I can't find now, of course. Tomatoes, cancer. What fruits and vegetables here help prevent prostate cancer? Okay. Well, see, now this article is horribly unformatted, so we wouldn't use this one either. Types of food that prevent cancer. Okay, so this one is good in terms of its formatting. And so what I could do here is just take a portion of the article, the first category, tomato, as a type of food that prevents cancer. I could copy this, go over to my site, and I'm going to delete this previous post paste this in. So this is kind of more of a curated kind of action that we've done here, because we are not actually reposting the entire content. Instead, we're just reposting a portion of it. But there's that section. And then we would, of course, link back to this page so that we're sourcing it properly. So I'm going to write that the source was Articles Alley, and I'm going to link to that source as well. And we can call it tomato growing, because that's what the site's about, right? And then we can say something like good for cancer prevention. And I'm going to quote this, so we'll put it in quotes. Actually, since we're in WordPress, we can do a block quote. And then, of course, as always with borrowing content like this, we would do our personal introduction, personal conclusion, our own thoughts on this. So let's save the draft, and we'll take a peek at what it looks like. So there it is. There would be the quote, there would be the source, and it would be all set to go. Now, another site that we can look at for this kind of thing is KwonDo, if that's how you pronounce it. All of these Web 2.0 sites with their ridiculous names really put my lack of pronunciation skills in the forefront as I'm making these videos for you guys. So KwonDo, KwonDio.com, is another place that, this one you probably haven't heard of, a lot of people haven't, that allows people, again, to submit their articles, and people want them to be republished. It gets them a link. And it says specifically, original articles to satisfy your readers. KwonDo has 50,000 original articles not found elsewhere, and you may republish many of them on your site for free. To quickly find engaging material that may be republished, look for the Creative Commons icon in our directory or in search results. And you can see that icon in this list below. You can see the Creative Commons icon over here on the right. So let's search for tomato growing, and we'll find an article in here that would work for our tomato growing website. So here's a list of some other sites, and I believe that these are people's sites who belong to the KwonDo network. But then down here in the Intel section is where you'll actually find the articles that are on KwonDo. We're looking for the Creative Commons licensed content, and this first one does have that, so we'll take a look at the article and see if it is of high enough quality to publish. It's the most popular crop of the home vegetable gardeners, but even people in a smaller location can have hanging tomato planters or an upside down tomato planters. Why would you use this kind of thing? Here's 6 different reasons why. Frequent watering, and a couple of disadvantages of the hanging tomato planters. One common variation is an upside down. It's basically the same. Okay, so this is all completely good, interesting if somebody is considering growing hanging tomato plants. So I would copy this and bring it over to my site. I'm going to delete that other stuff, and then we'll do Word, and we'll paste it in. Insert. Now, I would most likely change the title on this because my site's about tomato growing, and this particular article is about hanging tomato plants. So I might say something like growing hanging tomato, and that way it's still sticking to what my site's main keyword is. And then I would also probably change the formatting here to use the indented numbers, just so that it formats nicer on the site, and then delete this stuff. And you want to do that so that your readers have as good an experience as they're reading this article as they do reading an article that you've sourced, or sorry, that you have created yourself. Now, we still need the link back. So coming back over here, copyright notice, and if you use this content according to the license, which is that it may be copied, distributed, and modified as long as the original author is acknowledged with a link back to the page, and we will absolutely acknowledge this gentleman's work, and we'll add a line source, and link to that author's content so that he continues to get the benefit of having published that content. Again, we would absolutely include our personal introduction, our personal thoughts on it, and we have a different video for that, of course, but here's what it would look like once published and formatted properly. Looks good. Final place that I want to show you to get articles, and this is actually my favorite, and that's why I saved it for last, is ArticlesBase, and I'll show you exactly why I like ArticlesBase right now. We'll put in tomato growing, and here's a bunch of tomato growing articles. Amazing tomato growing tips. Sure, let's take a peek at that one. Soil preparation, they do get into some details there. Universal fertilizers. I think the introductory paragraph is kind of weak. It's very general. It's very typical of SEO type content. But then in here they get down into some more specific things. Tea extract, seaweed, spraying plants, pruning, and they simply pinch off the outer ends of the plants. This forces the nutrients and growth down. Harvesting tips, open palm under the tomato, it should easily fall into your hand, and what to do if you pick one that isn't quite ripe. So that's pretty good. I don't like the introductory paragraph, like I said, so I may actually leave that out. But ArticlesBase has this really cool link right here. Like this article, click to publish it on your website or blog. It's free and easy. And so we'll click that, and then what we get is the entire article actually formatted for us and linked properly for us. So we can copy and head on over to our site, and we click on HTML because it's already HTML formatted for us, and then paste. Now the way that they've set it up here is that the title is in an H1 there. We want to take that out and put it in our actual title. And then I prefer personally, and I think you'll understand why, to have the author information published below instead of above. I want people to be able to jump into the content, and then of course they can also, once they reach the bottom, they can find that article, or sorry, more information about that particular author should they need to. Adam Bradley, that's the gentleman. There's the link to the original article. There's his author box that he wants published as well. And I am going to leave out this original paragraph, this introductory one, because I don't like it. So we go back over to visual, and here it is all formatted out for us, and you can make any corrections that you might need to there. And then let's change up the title. Amazing tips for growing your tomatoes. We'd save the draft. Oh, whoops, I just published that. And then we'll take a peek at how it actually looks once it is published. There it is. And again, we still need our personal introduction and that sort of thing. Now, here's something for you as well. I have Broken Link Checker installed on my WordPress blog, and you'll see that this link has a line through it. That means that this link is actually not live anymore. It looks like his main site is, but this exact URL is no longer available. And when we go there, we see, yes, that's no longer available. Now, in this situation, because that link isn't live, I wouldn't mind, or I don't think that it would be unethical to remove that link. We're still keeping the link to his main site because that is a live link. But but it's not helpful to our readers or to this gentleman to have a link to a 404 page. So we can go ahead and remove that because that isn't a live page. And then that way he gets all of the link juice going to an actual working URL, which I'm sure he would prefer. And your site readers then also get only brought to a page that actually works, which is important for them as well. Now remember, we are not done yet. Once we've found the articles, once we've done the formatting like I've shown you here, we still need to add our own spin to the articles. We still need to add our own thoughts to the piece, and that will help us comply both with Google's guidelines, and it will help to bring your original voice and keep you as a market leader in your regular readers' minds. We've got another Module 5 video devoted just to that, so I will see you in that video.